Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sick Podcast with me, your hostess, Kelly Singh. We have a few headlines to get through today, mostly revolving around the new head coach position for the Cardinals. Who's it going to be? I've got a special guest today, so let's get into it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh.
Murray heaves it downfield. It's caught. It is caught. DeAndre Hopkins. Miraculous. It's Murray magic.
The sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Hello. If you've been following along since the end of the regular season, you know I've gotten in the habit of having a little bit of a coffee chat, spilling some tea, and I've been dying to bring on one of our very favorite guests, Arizona Cardinals beat reporter, Sports Illustrated writer for the Cardinals, Donnie Drouin. Donnie!
How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Because you've been ill.
Yeah, I was going to say very fitting for me to hop on the Sick Podcast when I'm getting over it myself. So, like I said, I was about 85% yesterday. I think I'm about 87% there. So I'm trying to get over that last nasally bump that comes with it.
I love that I'm like poking at you each day. I'm like, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Oh,
How's
fine.
that voice?
No. Like I said, any opportunity I get to come on here, I'll absolutely do it.
Stop. Okay. I'm very excited because I will have the opportunity probably to spend some time with you on your home turf there at State Farm Stadium if we can manage to find each other during the chaos of the Super Bowl. But I'm super stoked because to me that feels like, oh my gosh, I get to learn from Donnie today.
No, I'm super excited. If you get the opportunity to go to the Fan Fest, and it'll be held in downtown Phoenix at the convention center, either that or the arena for the Suns, either or. The last time the Super Bowl was here, it was an extremely fun time. So I definitely plan on going back.
Yes, everybody get your Fan Fest tickets. You don't have to be media for that, and have a blast. Okay, this is going to be a very easy show. What I've been doing is grabbing like whatever's the most recent article talking about it, and then also anything else that grabs my eye. We've been talking last week. It was about rumors about Hopkins being traded and people stepping down and who's going to be the head coach and who's going to be the GM and who's interviewing. And it's kind of the same this week. There's nothing super juicy, I don't think, unless you have like a bombshell to drop for us. But it's mostly, I'm noticing just more speculation around GM, more speculation around head coach, and also a little smattering of pre-draft talk for the Cardinals. So the first thing I want to talk about, this was kind of a big deal last week. There were a ton of articles about the Bears, Ian Cunningham interviewing for the GM position, coming from the executive team of the Bears. Seems like it could have been a great fit for us, yet he turned down that position. You wrote this article, DD. What is the tea there?
Yeah, so very interesting. Assistant manager, Chicago Bears assistant general manager Ian Cunningham interviewed with the Cardinals. I believe he was the first prospect they reached out to, and he's a very well-respected individual within the NFL. He spent a lot of time with the Baltimore Ravens, a very, very respected franchise, very analytical front office, and then got recently promoted to assistant GM of the Chicago Bears. The Athletic actually put him on a top 40 under 40 list. So, I mean, he's a very notable person within the league. Everybody from Eric DeCosta to Ryan Poles have had very generous things to say about him. So whenever the prospect of him coming to Arizona first appeared, everybody was kind of game for it. So it seems as if I believe Tom Pelissero was the one who reported it, that the Cardinals did offer him the GM job first, and he reportedly declined it, and that's how Monty Ossenfort kind of played into the picture. Also interesting is that he interviewed with the Tennessee Titans not once but twice. He went through multiple interviews before being denied that job. So I'm sure he'll get a job within the next future. He seems to have a very, very bright future as a GM, certainly.
So he turned us down probably because he wanted to pursue the Titans, and then the Titans turned him down?
Possibly, yeah. I'm not super sure. When you're a guy like that, you kind of take all the interviews you can, because worst case scenario, it's just experience for the job that you eventually do want to open up. And I think he might not have felt if it was a super great fit after the interview, because when you look at the Arizona Cardinals, you have around 37 free agents hitting the offseason. You have the number 3 overall pick. You have your franchise quarterback rehabbing from an ACL tear that happened later in the year. So there's a lot of a lot of good, a lot of bad that can come with taking this job. And it's a very pivotal offseason for the Cardinals. I mean, this offseason can kind of change the direction of the franchise one way or another. So that's a lot to shoulder for a brand new general manager, somebody who has never been in this position before. So maybe Cunningham thought that it wasn't perhaps the right opportunity for him after interviewing with Michael Bidwell.
Great point. Great point. Here I am just trying to look for some gossip. There really isn't any there. You're right. It is a smart move to take as many of those interviews as you can. I almost feel like, though, taking the job at the Cardinals could be just one of those ride the wave kind of things. But then again, it could go horribly bad, and that could be the end of your career as a GM. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you kind of see that the same with coaching interviews as well. A lot of people are hesitant to take on first-time head coaching opportunities. Now, granted, there's only 32 of those openings, so most of the time, if you get that opportunity, you're going to take it. But you do have to be smart about like where you go and who you align yourself with, because that first job is going to mean everything. Look at Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph took his first head coaching gig in Denver, did terrible, and now all of a sudden he's one of the front runners for the Cardinals head coaching job, and everybody does not want him to get it because of how things went in Denver. And so I think you can apply that same logic to being a general manager.
So that's a great transition. We wouldn't want him because of how terribly it went, but at the same time, maybe we do want him because of how terribly it went. Both, he may want it because it's, wow, another team I could coach and have another opportunity, where almost the Cardinals could be thinking, how much worse can it be? And probably not have to get into any kind of lengthy contract either. It could be a win-win when I look at it that way, when I put on my executive pants. Not that I've ever been an executive in the NFL, but when I think about corporate strategy, at least. I don't know. There are other interviews this week. The 49ers, DeMeco Ryans, is expected to interview, as well as the Lions defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn. Now, both of those teams shout winning. So is this a case of we're interviewing because we're interviewing, or is this a case of we are actually interested?
I think it's a little bit of both. And team owner Michael Bidwell said that they were going to cast a net out far and wide, was the term he used for both the general manager and the head coaching opportunities. And he's certainly done that so far. I believe Aaron Glenn was potential candidate number 7 for the head coaching job. And I'll touch on DeMeco here in a little bit. But if you look at the Lions defense last year, they definitely turned it around in the second half of the regular season. I mean, they almost played themselves into a playoff spot there in the final week of the regular season. But you look at the Lions, I think they were dead last in total yards allowed per game. They were tied for third to last in points allowed per game. So as a defensive coordinator, that doesn't exactly scream, hey, you should hire me as a head coach. But a lot of people look at the other qualities that he brings, that sense of leadership, that sense of coaching under a guy like Dan Campbell. All of those things kind of start to add up a little bit. So I think I don't think he's a very, very serious candidate to get the job, but I think Michael Bidwell. And what's interesting is Monty Ossenfort, whenever we spoke with him a couple of days ago, said that the Cardinals would not leave any stone unturned. And it kind of seems like that's exactly what they're doing. So it doesn't hurt to get a guy like him in the building, maybe get some thoughts or feedback, maybe see if he is potentially the right guy. Who a lot of people think is the right guy is 49ers defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans. And you see what he's done with that 49ers defense. They've won 10 games in a row. I mean, it's just absolutely insane of how well they're playing. His success and his experience in the 49ers organization has made him a top candidate. He's got 4 interviews this week, including the Cardinals. He has 4 head coaching interviews this week before the 49ers play a playoff game. So his schedule is stacked, from night and day. So it's absolutely crazy. But he was considered one of the top head coaching candidates.
I like that. I like the odds of that too, because being on the same side of the country, not that that always comes into play, but I do think that people in these positions do consider that. Players certainly consider that too. Nobody necessarily wants to move from the sun to the snow or from the east to the west or either. So maybe that could play into it. We're a nice state, DeMeco, a nice, sunny, beautiful state. Come visit, enjoy yourself.
Oh, for sure. You also have to think too, with a successful organization like the 49ers, I mean, you're bound to get interest from other teams. And it's not like, the Cardinals are the only team that's doing it.
Right.
Rand Carthen is one of the 49ers executives who just got hired as the Titans general manager over Ian Cunningham, who, we just previously talked about. But I mean, the Cardinals tried and they requested a permission interview, not one, but 2 49ers executives for the open GM job. So I think when you factor in DeMeco Ryans, and obviously the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree is going to expand greatly here in the next few years. You look at an organization like that, and I think that's something the Cardinals want to emulate down the road.
Okay. I really want to talk about this. This has been a name we have been speaking out loud for probably the last month. Every episode, Sean Payton constantly lumped in with the Cardinals.
Same thing.
Kind of. We'll go with it. And I am reading from you that it is now unlikely that Sean Payton would head to the Cardinals. I want you to humor me here for 1 second. Last week, I think it was last week, I asked a question just in general to the listeners. Would it be a thing if Hopkins could be traded for Sean Payton? Could that be, is that a possibility of a package? Did I just make that up? I mean, I know he's unlikely, but could that have ever been a thing?
That could have been a thing. He definitely could have been used in a trade to get Sean Payton. Also, a lot of people thought if he wasn't directly involved in a trade to the New Orleans Saints, whatever trade compensation the Cardinals would have gotten back for DeAndre Hopkins might have been able to been used in the trade for Sean Payton. But I mean, you asking for tea, I'll give you tea right now. I've heard, a toast to the tea we're about to hear. I've been told that Vance Joseph has been the leader in the clubhouse for a few weeks now, basically ever since Kingsbury got fired. The thing behind that is Michael Bidwell does not want to eat Cliff Kingsbury's contract, which he was reported to earn around $5.5 million per year. If you times that by the next 5 years of what he was supposed to be paid out, it's $27.5 million, right? So you take that $27.5 million you're supposed to pay Cliff over 5 years and measure that up to Sean Payton's reported $20 million a year for one season, definitely starts to add up a little bit over time. So the Sean Payton thing kind of out of the picture just in terms of finances, at least, but where that also factors in is the hiring of general manager Monty Ossenfort, because Vance Joseph was kind of the leader in the clubhouse until Ossenfort got the job. And I was told that a lot of people around the league were surprised at Ossenfort's hire. Maybe they expected Cunningham to get the job. Maybe they expected somebody else to get the job. But where that kind of throws a wrinkle in is that Ossenfort has previous experience in New England with Brian Flores, one of the initial coaches that the Cardinals requested to interview. At this time, we don't know if Brian Flores has interviewed. We don't know if he is going to interview, but we at least know that the request is in to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's currently their inside linebackers coach. So a lot of people are kind of connecting the dots there. So Vance Joseph and Brian Flores are definitely the top two candidates right now. When you kind of shift the focus over to Sean Payton, where Austin Fort kind of ties all of this together, Sean Payton reportedly wants a lot of control within the organization, right? So like the preferred route he would have liked with Arizona is they hire him on as the head coach, and then he helps kind of corral the GM search. That's not something Michael Bidwell wanted to do. He was very adamant from the beginning. He wanted the GM before he went and got a head coach. And now, apparently, I haven't heard this, but what the streets of Twitter were saying is Sean Payton was not exactly a fan of them going out and getting a general manager. So that may have pushed them away. It's a lot. It's a lot with the salary. It's a lot with the first round draft pick compensation you would have had to deal in New Orleans. And it's a lot to give Payton organizational control when you already have a GM. So a lot of things have kind of, at least for right now, put Sean Payton to Arizona on the back burner.
I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like Arizona has always given that organizational control to a GM. I don't feel like it's a franchise that's been very coach oriented as far as leading that organization. Am I wrong in that? I don't know.
No, I mean, because Steve Keim's been at the helm since 2013, so it's kind of been his way or the highway. And the thinking behind Keim being here or not being here was, if you're going to fire Cliff Kingsbury, are you going to let Steve Keim hire his fourth head coach in 10 years? What's that say about the GM? So
Yeah.
I think the Cardinals were just looking for a fresh perspective, both at the GM and head coaching position.
Great point. Super great point. So it kind of puts to bed that whole thing about Sean Payton. It really is a money issue. I don't know that I had thought about that, but I actually like the idea of Vance Joseph coming in. I think that could be a good move. But that's just me. I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of like that. And then
You actually
somebody
might be
else
the only one. I think you might be the only person who actually wants Vance Joseph to be with the Cardinals, because a lot of fans do not want him here. And I get it, because, I mean, the previous track record with Denver doesn't exactly scream successful. You want another perspective from outside the organization to hopefully come and change the culture. A lot of people will point to the players loving to play for Vance Joseph, but I feel like if you go into any locker room, every coach is going to have players that, love to play for them, and this, and that.
Okay. I am going to be kind of mean for a second. Cliff Kingsbury. I just watched the last Hard Knocks episode. It further drove home my whole drinking game point that we all will have alcohol poisoning if we take a shot every time he says go. To me, that does not speak to motivation, enthusiasm, respect. I want to hear something other than go, 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 get out there and go. So I hope that just bringing in somebody new might, in general, just light a fire and be like, okay, maybe we're going to actually have some meaningful direction. Although I'm sure it's edited. I know it's edited. I've been on reality television before, but still, it just became comical.
Yeah, no, and it felt like the same message kind of being driven to the ground every week. And when your team goes 4-13, at some point something has to change, whether it be the coach or the message being relayed. And as it turned out, it was both.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Last thing I want to touch on today, going into the draft, I'm starting to research my draft picks, hopeful to go to the draft again this year. It's so much fun. And I saw that you had written that through 2 rounds of mock drafts that the Cardinals were building up their defense. So going into the draft, that could be a sign that's what they're looking to do. At the same time, there are free agents available, and one of those would be I'm gonna slaughter it, but Draymond Jones or
Perfect.
Draymond Jones.
Draymond
Jones,
Yep.
free agent out there in the defense, ready to go, doesn't have to be drafted. Tell us a bit about the benefits of drafting versus free agency, perhaps in this case.
Yeah, so where the Cardinals find themselves at right now, the number 3 pick, there's an Alabama quarterback Bryce Young is expected to go either number 1 or number 2 overall. At the number 2 pick with Houston, if Chicago does not trade out, there might be another quarterback there as well. So the Cardinals are kind of in a really good position just in terms of wanting to add top end defensive talent because there's 2 guys everybody absolutely loves coming out this year. You have Georgia defensive lineman Jalen Carter, who is an absolute monster in the interior. And then you have Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson, who can get after the quarterback and was one of college football's best defensive players the last couple of seasons. And I feel like you really can't go right or wrong with either of those 2 guys. And it kind of seems right now things could change. But the Cardinals might have their pick at either or, which is a very exciting prospect because either of those guys could potentially be a cornerstone for the Arizona Cardinals defense for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
And where free agency kind of plays into that, normally if you're picking a little bit lower, if you're maybe in that like 6 to 7 range, you're not really sure if one of those guys is going to fall. I feel like you would be more inclined to go out and to get somebody as almost like an insurance policy, almost like, if we don't get our guy, at least we have this person to go. So I think Draymond Jones would be a pretty solid ad. He's coming off of his rookie contract. He had I believe the best year of his career with the Broncos before getting on IR after week 13 or 14 this year. He's not going to command crazy money, but I think he will definitely see a little bump in pay. So the benefit with that is you can either add Draymond Jones and a guy like Jalen Carter, or you can add a guy like Draymond Jones and then feel comfortable taking a guy like Will Anderson to play the outside linebacker role in Arizona's 3-4 defense. So a lot of ways, a lot of wiggle room that can be had. But I think free agency coming before the draft allows teams like the Cardinals to maybe, get some spots filled. If they don't end up getting the guy that they want, then you know what? At least they got somebody free agency. Now they're not panicking to reach somebody later in the draft.
Perfect. Yeah, I was just thinking, with JJ Watt retiring, going into the draft, I would think the Cardinals want that next Aiden Hutchinson. Then
you would hope so.
in.
Also, let's not forget Zach Allen is set to hit free agency as well. I mean, he should be a very, very big priority for the Cardinals to retain. But worst case scenario, you're losing both JJ Watt and Zach Allen. You're going to need somebody to get after the quarterback.
I'm going to throw in this wild question. My thought here was looking back at the draft and then going into the season, I feel like this season was a very heavy rookie season. A lot of rookies getting their big debut and playing all season long, and some of them becoming superstars basically overnight. With the injuries of this year, with the retirements of this year, with any other various circumstances of contracts, I'm wondering if we could see another year of football, another season of football, very heavy in young players. It just feels like it could be leaning that way. And this is a very good class.
No, absolutely. And I think the further we kind of progress, I mean, it feels like athletes are getting bigger, faster, stronger every single year. And it's getting to the point where, maybe a couple of decades ago, rookies were going to take that year to kind of, get themselves acclimated, learn behind the veteran, and then eventually take over the reins whenever they're ready. But now rookies are expected to come in immediately and produce. And I think you see extremely talented wide receiver classes coming through year after year and just having tremendous rookie campaigns. And it feels like they keep one-upping each other. It feels like for every like Jamar Chase that comes out, there's Justin Jefferson. For every Justin Jefferson that comes out, there's another top guy. You're going to see Marvin Harrison Jr. come through in the draft next year. He's probably going to be a top 5 pick. It's absolutely crazy. Then you look at like the other side of the ball, Ahmad Gardner, the first team All Pro. Ahmad Gardner. It's just absolutely crazy. He's already established himself as one of the best corners in the league. And then I think another All Pro, Patrick Surtain, has only been in the league for a couple of years too. So it's absolutely crazy just how great these young guys come into the league and just adjust at the snap of a finger.
Yeah, I think of Pickens. I think of Aiden Hutchinson. I think of Olave. I mean, even Kenny Pickett too. Just having to step in and maybe not all of them were superstars, but all of them were expected to fill a spot, with the exception of quarterback. That has to be incredibly difficult, and he certainly rose to the occasion. But wow, I mean, I can't even decide who I would want for rookie of the year, but I am heavily leaning towards Aiden Hutchinson, and it could be because he answered one of my questions from the press pool.
No bias at all, right?
It was really fun, and he's very, very personable. Donnie, this was so much fun. Gosh, just 24 minutes of joyous banter. We could be doing this every week, sir.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And it's not like we're going to have a shortage of things to talk about, too, with the Cardinals, probably hiring a head coach within the next couple of weeks. And then, draft season, free agency coming up, and I'll be at the Combine in Indianapolis. So I'd love to, organize something to where I could do a live shot for you there.
Oh, my gosh, that would be so much fun. Don't tease me. Okay, we will talk about it. Wow, this was a great episode. I learned so much, and I am looking forward to seeing how some of these topics resolve themselves over the next week. You continue to get better, sir.
Appreciate it.
And if you want to ask Donnie any insider type questions, follow his writing, especially super talented writer at Donnie Druin, covering the Cardinals for SI.com. And you can ask me any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. I'm just out here having fun, enjoying myself at Kelly and Phoenix. So, on behalf of my production crew here at the Sick Podcast, we will see you next week. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.